So the comment is something to the effect of like, well, but I went and got a degree, and so I was really successful. And I would argue that yes, maybe you went and got a degree and you were really successful, but correlation isn't causation. You probably would have been just as successful at that company had they hired you at like 15 and then trained you how to do that job, and you probably would have been just as successful. In fact, you probably would have got there a lot earlier than waiting, to go into a 4-year drinking contest, right? So that's the difference. I mean, like, so I mean, it's like saying, well, but it worked for me. It's like, yeah, but people win the lottery all the time, right? And I'm not saying, don't misunderstand, okay? Because I get mistaken. They say like, well, you're diminishing people's accomplishments. No, I'm really not. What I'm actually saying that what I just said, which is that you probably could have gotten hired at that job somewhere else in your life when you were 14, 15, apprenticed under somebody, and been just as successful. Right, you didn't need to go and give $150,000 worth of debt to some banking, what effectively is just a fake institution, and that you could never file bankruptcy on. It's just it's indentured servitude. That's all the institution is now. All the degrees and the institutions of so-called higher learning, which they are not, objectively, they are not higher learning. These institutions are just there to get you to owe a bunch of money, right, for no reason for a long period of time, and pay a bunch of interest to a bunch of bankers. That's all this is. It's got nothing to do. You getting an education is like not even on their radar, dude. If you happen to learn something, great, but the reality is you're going to learn more stuff out in the real world anyway. Okay, so that's really what a lot of this comes down to. And what I'm talking about is actually foundationally, it's actually somewhat the foundation of all law, if you understand it, because that's where laws come from. I'm not talking about the laws of physics and laws of conscience. Okay, we're not talking about those. Those are the real laws. Those are the only laws that actually exist on the planet. We're talking about all the fake laws. All the fake laws that are out there. The lowercase l quote laws, those exist because somebody at some point got rich, right? Somebody somewhere got rich, and then they had to create a bunch of laws to force everybody else to not do what he just did. Because if he did that, and if everybody did that, then there's no one to till the soil. There's no one to do the work. There's no one to do all the shit work. There's nobody to do any of that. And so he created a bunch of laws. And then the people then that were smarter probably said something to the effect of like, well, hold on a second here, dude. Where are you getting all these laws from? Well, they came from a guy in the clouds, Magic Man in the clouds, with a long white beard who looks like Billy Gibbons. That's where these laws come from. In other words, that's where religion comes from. Religion comes from usually somebody who was really successful at something, and they wanted to keep everybody else from doing the same thing because they wanted to continue to have slaves. That's just reality, okay? Now, this isn't a question of whether or not I believe there's a higher power behind this, or that there's something else extra dimensionally that we can't understand or something. Now, that's a whole different conversation. I'm talking about just the on earth reality, the scientific fact that these laws don't actually exist. All these lowercase l bullshit laws don't actually fucking exist. Even Josh told you that. Even your Christ told you that, right? I mean, what did Josh say? He says, dude, all these other laws are bullshit. There's the one commandment system, which is be excellent to each other and party the fuck on, dudes. That was the one law, right? Do unto others as you would have to others do unto you. That's it. The one commandment system. And here it is 2,000 odd years later, and people have still fucked it up. And now they've got 80 million plus goddamn laws to try and keep a handful of rich people super duper rich. Because that's really what all this is. This is where it comes back to, this call back to, if you watch any of the other videos that I've done, this calls back to the idea of, can you duplicate it? Can you duplicate what you just did? I would argue that the people that are out there, for example, that you got a degree and so you're successful, that's great. You probably would have been successful without it. You probably could have went and got the job that you have currently and done it without somebody giving you, some third party giving you a credit, anointing you with accreditation. It's common fucking sense, man.